All right, so I'm gonna walk you through the entire USDOT number application. This is gonna be a long video, but I know it's gonna benefit some of you that watched the old video I posted. I figured it's better to just walk you through step by step so you guys understand what each question means if you had any misunderstanding of them. To start off, you'll go to FMCSA's homepage, that address at the top, and then we're gonna click on, when you go to registration, it's going to have a drop down, and right here we're going to select apply for new USDOT number. As of January 1st, 2024, all government systems are required to have two-factor authorization, so you're going to have to make sure you create an account and sign in. And then this is going to let me know ahead of time. As an applicant applying for operating authority, you're required to have specific insurance and legal process agent, your BOC 3 documents on file before FMCSA issues authority. Now, what they changed, and another reason that I'm doing this is, before you would apply for your USDOT number through this same URS website, and then they had a separate one that was called the legacy registration system, where you would get your operating authority. But what they've done now is combined it into this one system to not only make it easier for y'all, but also for them to for you to pay for your authority without having to go through two separate websites. But that did change, and that's again another reason that I'm doing this video. Some required info. Here's a few things that you will need to complete your application. You got to have an EIN or a social. If you're going to do this as an entity, again, I recommend it to y'all that you first obtain your EIN from the IRS. But if not, you could just use your social instead. You're not required to have a Dun and Bradstreet number. I would recommend that you do get your DUNS if you're looking to have trade accounts where you apply for like fuel cards or equipment cards like at a Granger or something like that. The one thing I do recommend is that whatever address you're putting down for all this, make sure it all matches, because that'll make your ability to obtain business credit a lot easier when all addresses match. And most of those vendors like Circle K, let's see, WEX, and all those that would provide you fuel cards, they prefer that you have an actual business address instead of a residential. So that's just some FYI whenever you're applying for your business credit. And the only other thing you'll need is your company officer listing with titles. And if it's just you, then it's all you'll put down is yourself, and put yourself as the owner or CEO or president. Applicants that are required to file financial responsibility. By financial responsibility, they're talking about insurance. It says ensure you have evidence of responsibility electronically filed with FMCSA. And again, the reason this is telling you ahead of time is that if you're going to apply for operating authority, which is your MC number, you're required to have evidence of your insurance before it becomes active. What would happen is your insurance agent would need to file Form E with FMCSA in order to activate your operating authority, which is separate from your USDOT number. You also will designate a process agent, and we'll get to that. Later on. But this is just, again, letting you know ahead of time that in order to complete the process, you have to designate a process agent. But it gives you a listing that you can select on your own. It's not something you have to go research. They'll actually give you the approved agents that they have. And all it is someone that can accept legal documents on your behalf, but it's the only time you'll ever have to obtain one is the very first time you're applying for your operating authority. Issuing an active USDOT number notice or issuance. Applicants may not engage in operations without registration and an active USDOT number. A USDOT number becomes active only after registration has been granted by FMCSA. So again, in order to operate, you have to have an active USDOT number, which is what we're applying through here. All right, now the first step is you're going to get your application ID assigned to you This is just in case you don't have the time to complete it all at one time. Make sure you take down your ID and then remember your password, of course, so you can get back in and complete your application. It's going to ask you to put in a contact. That'll be you or whoever that you're submitting. Now I'm using all my info for this, so y'all see, so y'all can understand how to fill it out. But it would just be me. I'm the company contact. Put your first, middle, last name. The next step is to describe the business that we're gonna operate in. So first, it's gonna be my company name. You'll put your company's name in there. Make sure that your business address is the same as your contact address. For me, I'm gonna say yes. Again, this is where I recommend y'all only have one business address that also matches your contact, which makes it easier to obtain business credit. And then here it's going to ask you, do you want to put an EIN or a social? I would prefer that you do an employer ID, again, just so it matches when you apply for trade accounts. Or you can use your social if you want. Then it's going to ask you what type of business you're formed as. Most of us are going to probably be an LLC, but again, that depends on what your structure is. At the end of every block of info, you'll also get like a summary. So if you have to end up going back to change anything, you can, if you made a mistake or you misspelled something, it'll summarize it for you so you can always see if you need to go back and make any changes. Operation classification is the next block. And we're going to go with the second one, unless you were an intermodal equipment provider. We're going to select motor carrier property, a company that provides truck transportation. There are two types of carriers, private carrier and for hire. With the applicant transport property, here we're going to say yes if that's what you're going to do. It's also going to ask you about passengers and stuff too, but if you're only going to do property, then that's what you'll select. Will the applicant receive compensation for the business of transporting property? Yes, you're probably going to get paid to haul loads. Now, the reason this is also asking this in the beginning is what they're also looking at is classifying you as an interstate motor carrier that's going to be for hire, getting paid to haul other people's property, which means that you're going to have an MC number. And we'll get to that here in a second. But if you were gonna be a private carrier, then of course you'd answer no to both of those questions, right? Or yes, you would answer here if you're gonna transport your own property. But if you're not being compensated to transport that property, meaning you're moving your own stuff, then you would hit no on this question. Will the applicant transport non-hazmat across state lines, otherwise known as interstate commerce? Okay, this is where I want you to be very careful. If you're not going to operate across state lines, then make sure you select no. If you're only going to stay in Texas, you're only going to stay in Oklahoma, you're only going to stay in Kentucky or Alabama or wherever you're at, then just select no. If you're going to operate across state lines and you put yes, just understand when we get to the last step, you're going to be required to pay $300 because you're already going to pay for your operating authority. The USDOT number is free. The $300 is for your operating authority. And that's why some of you, when y'all were going through this, were messaging me on the old video saying like, hey, they're asking me to pay $300 or $600. It's because you were selecting operating authorities. And again, which I didn't know that they had combined it into one system, but now you understand why. So if you're only going to operate in your own state, then you would select no, and you're not going to have to pay those $300 for your MC number at the very end. Will the applicant transport their own property? If you're gonna haul your own stuff, where you're gonna be a private carrier moving your own equipment, then you would select yes. If you're not gonna transport your own stuff and transport others, then you would say no, because you're getting paid to haul other people's stuff. Then it's going to ask you to select the types of cargo you're going to transport. Now, this doesn't have to be 100% inclusive. Remember, this is just us filling out an initial application on file, to have on file with them, right, to get our USDOT number. But it doesn't mean like you can only haul these products. If you're going to end up hauling something different later on, then whenever you do another when you do your MCS 150 update, then you just select that commodity. But This doesn't mean that if you only select general freight that you can't also haul motor vehicles. This is just, again, providing them some initial information on the type of operation that we're going to be. So just select whatever you're going to do and select it. And if it changes, let's say you stop hauling something, the next time you do an update, just remove that commodity. Okay, but you go through them and select whichever ones you're going to do. And then again, it's going to summarize it at the end of every block of info that they request. Next, we're going to go into the vehicles. FMCSA needs to capture the details regarding the type of vehicles you plan to operate. We're asking you here, provide non-CMVs the applicant plans to operate. This would just be like your non-regulated pickups or whatever that you're going to have. There's not any real reason they need this. Again, they're just getting initial information. But if you're only, if you have like F-150s or something that aren't ever going to be regulated, then just put the number of pickups you have. Again, this is just initial information you're providing. It's not catch-all. They're not gonna go investigate in your yard and see that you have 3 trucks instead of 1, and you only put 1 at the beginning. It's not that intrusive. It's just an initial request of information. What type of commercial vehicles you're gonna operate, and then it'll ask you by straight trucks, truck tractors, trailers, and then if you were going to be an intermodal equipment provider, then you select if you're going to provide the chassis. But for most of us, it's just regular carriers. You'd select how many straight trucks you have, tractors, and then semi-trailers. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. I would just put 1 in the beginning, and then if you add 5 trucks or 5 trailers in the next year, just add them the next time you do your MCS 150 update. That's why they require you to do that every 2 years, is you're just updating your original information that you submitted in your application. Okay, so then again, so this is just again the same vehicle types, and then here I wanted y'all to also see that you can always go back, like if you leave the menu on this, you'll have the menu on the side that lets you know your progress, and then you can save. Upload any files if you need, but I wanted y'all to see that you can go previous or next when you need to make changes between the questions. If you're going to operate in Canada or Mexico, you'd put the number of vehicles you're going to operate in those. I just put 0 because we're only going to do here in the U.S. Provide the number of CMVs you operate solely in interstate commerce, and this again would be another line you have to pay attention to, because again, if you're only going to operate intrastate, meaning you stay in your own state, then you would make sure you put 0. But you could have, like, let's say initially we reported 5 truck tractors, but only 1's going to cross state lines. Then even though in the block of truck tractors we'd have 5, in this block we'd only put 1 because only 1's going to go across state lines. So again, it's just making sure that you put in there as precisely as you can what type of operation and vehicles you're going to operate. And then here, if we're going to do intrastate, this is where I would put the other 4 tractors because only 1's going to go across state lines. So again, just make sure you pay attention. And you also see that they, when they want you to be very careful, they highlight it in blue bold letters, and you can also click on it, and it'll give you like a little message that lets you know what the meaning of the word is. Okay, so then here's our summary again. It's gonna summarize whatever questions we answered in that block. Now we're gonna go with the drivers. How many drivers we're gonna use? What's the number of drivers that are gonna operate interstate within a 100 air mile radius, beyond a 100 air mile radius? I've never really understood why they asked this, because as a matter of fact, like most of y'all know now, the mile radius went up to 150, so, and they still haven't changed it in the regulation. But here again, just go only put down the number of drivers that are going to operate interstate. If they're going to go cross country, then of course it's going to be beyond, and if they're going to stay within, then just put within the 100 air mile radius. Again, it's not absolute. Just put in there as accurately as you can, and if you only have 1 driver, just put 1. If you add 3 or 4 drivers in the next year, just add them and update them the next time you do your MCS 150. And then, of course, it asks, how many drivers am I going to have intrastate? I just put 0 because we only have one driver going across state lines. But if you were going to have some go interstate, like, for example, those 5 truck tractors, we'd put one driver interstate and then the other 4 intrastate. What are the number of drivers with a commercial driver license? Licencia Federal Conductor or valid Canadian Class 1 or 2, 3 or 4 1, 2, 3 or 4 license. So this is asking CDL drivers. So how many CDL drivers do you have with a US CDL, Mexico CDL, or a Canadian CDL? And here you just put however many CDL drivers that you have. The number of drivers operate in Canada or Mexico, I just put 0. If you were going to operate in those countries, then you'd put the number you're going to have. Here's our summarization. Proceed to the next block. Financial responsibility, again, is insurance. They need to determine the amounts that I got to have. Here they're asking, is the entity transporting property interstate and for compensation? Will any of this property get transported in vehicles over 10,001 pounds? We'd put yes. Again, those are, it's asking about your DOT regulated vehicles, which in interstate commerce are over 10,000 pounds. So we'd put yes because we're going to operate interstate. If you weren't, and this is a question again, you have to be careful. If you're only going to stay intrastate, then make sure you put no here, because again, selecting yes, hauling property interstate, it's going to require me to pay the $300 operating authority at the end. So make sure you put no if you're not going to operate across state lines. And right here's where they're making the determination. I will operate for hire, property carrier, general freight, and estimated that my minimum financial responsibility insurance is $750,000, and that hasn't changed actually since like the late '80s. But just so y'all understand, because I've selected to be an interstate carrier, it's going to require that I have at least the minimum umbrella, which is $750,000. Here in Texas, if you're going to operate intrastate, that number goes down to $500,000. So again, be careful in that you're not answering that you're going to be an interstate carrier if you're only going to stay intrastate. Affiliation with others. FMCSA needs to capture some details regarding the entity's relationship with any other FMCSA regulated entities. And this is just simply asking, like, if you, within the last 3 years, have you had any kind of relationship in stock ownership or management of another company or the person that's applying for registration? Just put no. If you have multiple companies, then you put yes. And all they're going to check here is that to make sure that you don't have like a pending civil penalty that you're supposed to pay, before you could apply for another USDOT number. Certification statement applies to the responses provided to this application by the applicant. You must certify to the truthfulness of statements in the application under the penalty of perjury. So this is kind of just going through the whole thing where you as the applicant are certifying that. Also here, I wanted you to pay attention to, it says, certify that I'm familiar with the motor carrier safety regulations and, if applicable, the federal hazardous materials regulations and the federal motor carrier commercial regulations. So in my courses, I've always, when I talked about this part where you apply for a USDOT number, which is the very first step when you're going to be a trucking company, where they're making you certify and testify to the fact that you are familiar with the motor carrier safety regulations. Because later on, when you're not complying and you end up getting audited, they're always going to revert back to the fact that you certified that you were familiar with the regulations. So make sure that this is where you're initially telling FMCSA, okay, I'm going to be a motor carrier. I have to follow your regulations, and they're telling me you better be familiar with them and you better follow them. All right. So you have to be aware of the regulations. And if you're not, that's why you come sit through my class, where I help you understand how they work on this side. By signing these certifications, the official is on notice that the representations made here are subject to verification through inspections in the U.S. and through the request for examination of records and documents. This is where they're telling you, by certifying, saying you're familiar with the regs and that you're going to comply, that they're going to verify that by doing audits on you. Okay, examining your records and documents. Failure to support the representations could lead to being assessed civil penalties or the revocation of the registration granted, where they end up revoking your USDOT number and your MC number, and then you're shut down. Does the applicant certify is willing to enable to provide the proposed operations or service and to comply with all pertinent statutory regulatory requirements and regulations issued or administered by USDOT? So again, another part where it's asking you, make sure that you're gonna follow the DOT regulations now that you're applying to be a trucking company. Do you certify that you're able to produce for review and inspection documents requested by DOT? So again, this just going through legal certification that you understand you can be subject to an audit and that you're going to provide the records that they request. Does the applicant certify that they're not currently disqualified for operating CMVs in the U.S.? Yes. This is another question, again, they ask because what some people sometimes try to do, like you got shut down as one trucking company and you try to be a chameleon carrier by signing yourself up for another DOT number to start all over again, even though you're the same company. But before you would be allowed to do that, you have to make sure that you've satisfied whatever requirements that FMCSA had for you to shut down the other entity. So this is just certifying that no, you're not disqualified from operating commercial vehicles for any reason because you have an out of service order. Does the applicant certify and understands the agents for service of process designation? Again, this is just something hit yes. This is just letting you know that you're going to designate a process agent to accept legal documents on your behalf. Does the applicant certify that CARE is not prohibited from filing its application because its registration is currently under suspension or was revoked less than 30 days before filing the application? And that's what I just briefly spoke about, is that you weren't shut down as another carrier, and then within 30 days you're trying to apply for a new DOT number to because you're gonna still operate as a new company now. If the applicant's registration is currently revoked, does the applicant certify the deficiencies cited in the revocation proceeding have been corrected? And they will ask you for proof of this if you've already been shut down, if you have a cease and desist order, right, where they revoked your authority and DOT number, that whatever corrective actions or whatever they required you to, the deficiencies that shut you down, that they've been corrected. Because again, they're not going to just automatically approve this if you have any of these issues, if you have any of these underlying issues. And then you'll type in your name as electronic signature, and then right here it's going to take you again through that summarization for all these certifications you made. Here you're reading a note saying that yes, if completed, that I as the owner, authorized company official, or if I appointed a power of attorney, that I'm certifying all information supplied is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. And if you have someone else doing it, then of course they're going to do it on your behalf. You'll type in your name again for this oath. And then here, again, just giving all that legal mumbo jumbo, letting you know, hey, if you're falsifying any of this, you're subject to perjury and whatever else. Okay, now here at the end, FMCSA has determined that I'm going to operate as a for-hire property carrier. To proceed with submitting the application, an application fee of $300 is required. So again, this is where you had to have been careful in the way that you were selecting these, making your selections in the operation classification. Because if I wasn't gonna be a interstate carrier, then it wouldn't require me to pay the $300. You would just then proceed to the next step where they may still ask that you have a credit card on file for verification, but it wouldn't charge you anything. In this case, because I've already selected that I'm gonna be an interstate for-hire carrier, they're gonna make me pay those $300. Some of you in that old video in the comments mentioned you're getting asked to pay $600 or whatever. The only way that could have happened is that you selected to operate like either in Canada or Mexico, where they required that you have like some kind of a different authority, because any authority that you apply for to be just like an MC number, an MX number. If you're gonna be a broker, any one of those that you're applying for, they're gonna charge you $300. So that may have been a reason that some of you I know have had mentioned, hey, like they're wanting 300 or 900. The other the rest of you, you were getting asked to pay that because you were on the wrong website, and some of you actually proved it to me because I asked you to send me a screenshot of what you were looking at, and I had to tell you right away, you're on the wrong website. Okay, so make sure that you're doing it through this website on FMCSA, because if not, you're doing it through a third party that's going to charge you the extra fees on top of what you would already have to pay if you were getting authority. So make sure that you're not doing it through a third party. All right. Here at the end, FMCSA does not refund filing fees. So whether you get approved or not, they're not gonna refund those $300 or $600 or whatever amount you pay. Fees are required for each type of registration requested. For example, if a carrier wishes to be registered as both a motor carrier and a broker, applicants may file a single application and make a single payment of $600. Because again, those are it's $300 for each authority. In this case, where we're only selecting to operate as a motor carrier, then we only pay $300 because I selected to be interstate. FMCSA will not process application until the payment has been deducted from their banking or credit card account. Creation of an FMCSA application does not guarantee access to the portal because, again, it has to be approved. And then here at the end is where you'll put in your payment. Remember, there was at least a step ahead before they're going to let you know how much they're going to charge. And they won't approve you until you've actually been charged for it. Now, I did it. In this case, I had actually set this up for a company and paid the $300. And you'll see here, as long as you had no issues with your application, you're going to be granted your USDOT number right away, okay? I did skip over some of the basic, basic questions that, like your contact info, right, name, email address, and all that. But remember, whatever phone number that you use, as soon as you submit this and you see this screen right here, within seconds, you're going to get bombarded with the solicitors that are going to try to sell you safety manuals, clearinghouse subscriptions. The majority are going to be insurance companies that are trying to sell you policies and get quotes because they know you selected to operate as a motor carrier. But you're going to absolutely be bombarded with calls, messages, and I think emails. I don't really remember. It's been a while since I'd done it through like on my own. But for sure, the text messages and the phone calls are going to be non-stop, and it's going to last for at least a couple weeks. That's where I had recommended in the old video that, like, if you just happen to have like a throwaway number, or if you have an actual landline in your office, just put that number, and then maybe like a month later or weeks later, go back and change it to your cell phone so that in case FMCSA does call you, you're actually going to be able to pick up the phone because it's your cell phone. Or if it's someone in your office and that's the number you're comfortable with having, then just leave it that way. But, for the most part, most of us are carrying cell phones anyways, and that's the number we're going to use for everything. But just understand that if it's a cell phone, you're going to get bombarded with text messages and phone calls. And then the next step is saying they're reviewing the application, and then I'll receive a notification with your assigned USDOT number, which I already have it. So right there, you'd want to make sure you capture it and keep it, because that's going to be your assigned DOT number, which you will get instantly. And same thing if you didn't select to be an interstate carrier, you would get your $300, or you wouldn't be charged the $300, and you'd instantly get your USDOT number. If you applied for operating authority, you'll receive a notification with your assigned motor carrier docket number. And remember that you're not going to get it until you have on file with FMCSA Form E from your insurance agent it's not going to be active. Now you'll have your USDOT number, but you just won't have your MC number active. And then at the end here, it says this is where they'll ask you to then go and create your portal. FMCSA requires applicants to register for a portal account to maintain their registration information and to monitor their safety info and activity, because everything is done through your portal now. So again, you're gonna have to set this up after this, because then this is where you'd go and be able to submit like your MCS 150 and everything else. So make sure that you're keeping all this info. They also they give you the ability to download your entire application in PDF, which I'd highly recommend y'all do, and keep on file just for whatever reasons you may need it. Understand too that there's only one portal created for every USDOT number. There's one administrative account who is your main contact, and then anybody in your company can have their own portal set up, but there's only one administrative account per entity. And here they're also letting you know FMCSA will not call you immediately after you submit your application for registration. You may receive phone calls and/or emails from companies soliciting your business immediately after you submit your application, offering to complete the process for you. While some of these companies offer insurance and process agent service, you're not required to accept services they offer. You may select your own qualified financial security and process agent provider within the time frames, because again, they'll give you the list to let you know which ones are the process agents that you can select. Some solicitors may request access to your portal. Do not approve these requests if you don't know the person and have not requested their assistance. And then again, this is a separate video that I have talking about using third-party solicitors. FMCSA will never request your portal account login info by phone or email. And some of these, if they become too aggressive, you can actually make complaints on them through the Federal Trade Commission. But that's how you apply for a DOT number to these days, right? If you have any questions, feel free to answer or ask those below, and I'll answer them as I can. But this will take you about probably 25 minutes or so if you already have all that info available. But that was definitely needed, because I saw the change in that they have you apply for your MC number along with your USDOT number together at the beginning, instead of having it separately like they did before. But thanks for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe this video with anyone that you know that may need to watch it to be able to set up their USDOT number and start working as a carrier. Thank you.